Good morning. How are you, Carole?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to see you this morning.
This evening.
Oh, that's right. It's evening there in the
Transatlantic.
UK. So awesome to have you here with me today. I'm actually calling in from Dallas. That's where I used to live. And I am back here for a while, sheltering in place mostly, but I'm glad to be back home. So for those of you joining us, I'll give everybody a few minutes to get on, but let us know where you are joining us from and put that down in the comments. And if you have any questions for Carole, please ask them in the comments and we'll try to get to them. Carole is joining me today from the UK, and she is an Expat Life mentor and a consultant. She's the author of Expat Education and the founder of Expat Child, and she helps parents navigate the challenges of moving and living overseas. So Carole, welcome. I appreciate you being on here so much.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It was great to make your acquaintance.
I know. Well, and I had read an article that you wrote, and that was kind of what connected me with you. And we'll kind of get to that in a minute. I want to kind of start with how you even got to writing that article but it really caught my attention because I think it speaks to a lot of the challenges. And in the introduction, I said, if you are an accompanying talent, if you're that trailing spouse, or as Sunday Bean calls it, the trailblazing spouse, that's what we're talking about today, are those men and women that support the mobile employee and along with other things. But anyway, I wanted to find out a little bit and have you share your story and what was your expat journey? I know you're in the UK, you're back in the UK, but I know you had quite the journey in between.
Certainly did. In 2006, we moved. So we is my husband and our then 5-year-old daughter, plus 2 cats. We moved from the UK to Tokyo in Japan. And I spent the entire year before moving not planning for it at all, because I was running a publishing company and needed to get that finished and sold. And I think I maybe left about 3 weeks to plan the move. And from Tokyo, we were there for 5 years. And after that, we moved to Berlin in Germany. Only stayed there for a couple of years because my husband got an unexpected transfer to Pretoria in South Africa, where we stayed until we moved back to the UK a couple of years ago. So bouncing around.
That was and quite the journey in a lot of different places. I mean, that's a couple of different continents and certainly different cultures.
Very different.
What was one of the biggest challenges for you as a mom? There are probably 2 challenges, right? You were a career woman that left your career, and then you were also the mom of a 5-year-old at the very beginning. What were the biggest challenges that you found in that process?
For the career side of things, that wasn't a major issue. I've been self-employed since 1994 and used to sort of doing my own thing, various different jobs. I won't go into my CV here because we'll be here forever. But my daughter started a local school here in the UK for 1 term before we moved to Tokyo. And for that entire term, she did nothing. She didn't even unpack her PE bag, her games bag. We got to Japan, she went straight into the school there and did more in 1 day than she did in the whole term in the UK. So she was exhausted. She was only 5 and she hadn't quite got to grips with moving 6,000 miles. So yeah, getting her settled in. Sorry, I forgot to close that.
That's okay.
And getting her settled in, helping her to understand what had actually happened. Even though she was prepared beforehand, she didn't grasp the concept of moving to a new country. Mm-hmm. So learning from her what matters for a child. And then, of course, when we moved back, she's a teenager, and that's a whole different ballgame.
Well, and repatriation is a whole different ballgame as well. So
she'd never really lived in the UK. Right. So, up until the age of 5. Mm-hmm. And then her formative years were spent overseas.
Yeah.
So I'm having to teach her basically how to be or fit in with English people.
Yeah.
Which isn't easy.
No, it's not. It's a big learning curve. And I love the strength of men and women who support their significant others' careers, and then they end up creating their own careers in the process. So how did you get from selling a business and going to Japan, living in Pretoria, and doing the different things that you did, and use that experience to serve as your career inspiration?
So my background is basically tech, IT, and so I'm very comfortable with computers, and I'm also a writer. So I had my magazine, my publishing business, and sold that before I moved, but carried on writing for the magazines in the UK. So I was a freelance writer. I was also a webmaster, and that all worked out quite well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was busy doing freelance writing, editing, copywriting, and such. And then we moved to Germany, and that was quite a big move. The reason being was we were in Japan for the big earthquake. So everything was all a bit mad for the last year. Then we had the earthquake just before we moved. And by the time we got to Germany, we were pretty much suffering from PTSD. And I'm not making light of that. It was pretty rough. And I couldn't continue the freelance writing. I'd sort of given that up due to difference of opinions. And I'd already been blogging almost full time from Japan and throughout the earthquake. My personal blog from the earthquake times has actually now been put into the British Library for posterity, which is quite cool. And a lot of journalism work. So by the time I got to Germany, I was absolutely exhausted. The other difficulty we had was choosing a school from another country without going to visit. We don't get recce visits. We have to choose where our kid is going to school from the other side of the world. We also don't get a say in where we're going to live. So we arrive in a country and the car takes us. Oh, this is your new home. Okay, thanks. So we got her into a school which we thought was fairly close, turned out to be 25 kilometers away, and only 10 children in her entire year, all of whom had been there from the year dot, weren't very accepting. And we accidentally discovered that they were changing their international status to something else, which meant all of their lessons were going to be in German. So that wasn't really a good fit. So we. And
how old was she at that time?
She must have been about 10 or 11. Okay. And not a great time. Yeah. So throughout the 2011 summer was a huge change for all of us. And I decided to write a book about moving overseas with children. So I spent the summer holidays of 2011 mapping out my book and writing chapters. And then we found out that she had to change schools and things started to go a bit wrong. Yeah. And I thought, well, I might blog. No, I don't want to blog. I know, I'll do an online magazine, bringing everything all together. And that's how Expat Child started the following year, 2012. And it was formatted as an online magazine. I was still in publishing mode, and I liked layout and all the graphic design, which is another thing that I do. And yeah, so that's how Expat Child was born.
Well, and finding the right educational choice. I know, like you said, you didn't really have those choices, but I think finding that right educational choice is so key. I know when we repatriated back from Germany to the US, we didn't have, we were able to choose our own real estate agent, a lot of things we were able to choose, but we didn't choose somebody that understood the challenges of that. And we ended up not finding an IB school until it was too late to register our son. And if we had just known about that choice, it would have really changed the whole trajectory of our transition and the upheaval of changing schools into the process and everything else. So I love the fact that you do that and that you write about the education, and because that's a critical piece of it.
It really is. And we've experienced so many bad education systems and so many good ones. And also, I knew nothing about the IB when I first moved. We had no choice into which school she was first placed because of the rules of the company. And we also thought we were going back to the UK after Japan. So, okay, we'll put her into a British curriculum school because she'll be going back to the UK. But then it didn't happen. Okay. So that kind of is, you basically need a crystal ball before you can choose a school.
Yeah, and you need to be doing that long before you get there. So, So I just want to say hello to everybody that's on here. Please feel free to give us a like, big thumbs up, and just let Carole know that you're here. And if you have any questions, let us know. And if you want to put anything in there about your own experience moving overseas, or maybe ways that you help relocation clients adjust and transition to their new home, let us know. One of the ways that I found you was an article that you wrote about the importance of owning the decision. I loved that article. It was 2 parts, and I think I saw the second part and didn't even realize that there's a first part until we went back and forth on email this week. Tell me a little bit about what prompted that article and what you mean by the importance of owning that decision to move abroad.
Okay, I'll start at the beginning. Last year in October for Mental Health Day, I wrote quite a substantial article about expat mental health. And over half of expats experience mental health problems, and it's higher in the accompanying partner for reasons which we know about. And so I shared that on my Facebook page, and there was quite a backlash, and I got criticized for writing negative stuff. And so that was fun. And it sort of prompted a conversation. I've got a private Facebook group. So it prompted a conversation in there, which threw up some other interesting points, which can be sort of condensed into all women are unhappy with the move and they're all reluctant trailing spaces. And of course, we know that's not true. But
it's just the opposite a lot of times, or most times.
Yeah, most times it's but there's a perception. And that's where owning the decision started. And owning the decision was it ended up going down a feminist rabbit hole of ranting. And then part 2 was supposed to come out the following month, but other articles took precedence, and COVID and sponsors. So I finally got around to publishing part 2, whereas I wanted to try and clear up what may have happened to prompt this idea that all women trailing spaces, and I'm going to emphasize the female part of that because that was what my first one was all about. And there is still a victim blaming mentality against women. And maybe we do sometimes encourage that. And as I say in my article, is it that we're perhaps talking to new friends and explaining how wonderful our life was before, but now you've had to give it all up to move here and you haven't got a job? And it can spiral down for some people. It's definitely not for all people, not for that many people. But by opening up the discussion, privately, I am getting a lot of information and a lot of people saying, yes, I get it. And yeah, we are moved. And there needs to be better conversations between partners and between workers and companies and between accompanying spouses and companies. Some people, I've had some very odd calls. One in particular stands out with regards to the conversation. I had a gentleman call me and, I want to move abroad. It will be good for my career. Okay, that's great. How long? 6 months. Okay. And what about your wife and children? Does your wife have a job? Oh, yeah, she has a little job. It doesn't matter. What about your children? Oh, I hadn't thought of that. So there needs to be a better conversation between husband and wife for sake of classification, and also between employers expecting their staff to go overseas.
Well, it definitely needs to be viewed as a family unit and a family decision. And I think a lot of times it's interesting because I feel like a lot of times that spouse, that partner is left out of the discussion. And we talk about that a lot, of the importance of including that spouse in the discussion from the very beginning until when the survey is sent out. And it's interesting because you're not the only one that says that. And I think, like you said, owning that decision is so important. And I will say, giving up my career and being a mom to my 4 kids and supporting my husband, it was a very powerful thing to be able to do. And it was a great thing to be able to do. And so I love what you talk about, not being a victim and just owning it and just saying, you know, we made that decision together and it was awesome. And one of the things that's been really fun for me, recreating my career at age 50 something after 20 years of being an expat trailing partner, whatever you want to call it, was being able to do it at age 50 and being able to do it successfully. And I think that goes back again to, we just need to be able to own it and not expect anybody else to do it for us, and really enjoy, because it is, even though we might complain about it, we talk about the things that we miss and we gave up, it's a phenomenal experience.
Oh, it truly is. It's amazing to experience the different cultures and meet so many varied people.
Right. And I think from that experience, there's so many things that we can do to help others. And I think that's really one of the purposes of this show, is to help those people in relocation, real estate agents, relocation providers, employers, really tap into our community of relocation clients, especially that accompanying talent, which is kind of the most, I think that's, to me, the best word for it. Tap into that talent that there, and the careers that have been created, the books that have been authored, and the coaching that's offered by that community. So, what would be something that would be helpful for relocation providers to better understand? I think they just do such a good job, I think, meeting the physical needs of the move. And I always say, you know, if they break something in the move, money can fix it. But I think sometimes it's those social and emotional needs that go unmet. What are some things that you would say that an employer or a relocation provider could do to better meet the needs of the family when they move to a new city or a new country?
Totally, from the start, better conversations with everybody, not considering the accompanying partner as a second-rate citizen, which has been my experience, sadly. If the accompanying partner and the children aren't happy or comfortable or have the right life, then it's very likely that their whole assignment is going to fail. And that is going to cost a company a lot of money.
Yeah, it will cost a lot of money. And I talk a lot about, our company just spent a small fortune to move us to Boston, and then COVID hit. And I thought that was interesting, the fact that you moved from Japan after the earthquake to Germany. You were forced to do that. It was very sudden, very unexpected. And just to, you understand a little bit the experience that some of the people that have been, their lives have been disrupted by COVID. I do want to welcome Rolf. He's from Germany. We spoke earlier this week. He is in the relocation industry. Welcome, and I'm glad you're here. Michael as well, who is a new real estate agent, or fairly new real estate agent in Florence, South Carolina. I appreciate y'all being here today. But what are some things that, with COVID, like, we can't ignore the subject, right?
No, we can't.
Unfortunately, I wish we could, but we can't. What are some things even that, what are some of the challenges of COVID that you've seen with people that have relocated or that have had to come back from expat assignments?
Well, there are two main sets, if you like. The ones who are locked down in a different country, and some are experiencing some very strict lockdowns. It's strict here in the UK, but in South Africa, for example, even stricter. And the others who were semi-evacuated. I have to say, we weren't evacuated from Japan. We were leaving anyway. We didn't have an emergency evacuation. We planned to move to Berlin. So, but with COVID, what's happening is it's splitting families up. And you've got the family and the children having to find a place somewhere back home, while the worker is usually still overseas. So that's one real difficulty, and there's no end in sight. For us in the UK, you know, things are still very strict, still very locked down. So they don't know when they're going to see their families again. People who were part way through moving are staying in B&Bs in some random country. And it really has fractured a lot of families. And nobody knows when it's all going to start up again.
It's hard. And there have been assignments that have been put on hold. I have a friend who is halfway packed, and then everything shut down. And so their move's been put on hold. I have friends that are separated from their young adult children or their college kids. It's really challenging. But I
Yeah.
love the fact that there are people like you that are out there that offer that coaching, the counseling, not as a counselor, but as a mentor. And so again, if you're in relocation or if you're considering a move, Carole's a great person to connect with, because if she's not able to sit down and talk you through a conversation that can be beneficial, I know you have other resources that are very beneficial to help somebody work through some of those challenges and those issues. Tell me a little bit about, I know you mentioned that you can connect with you for an expat espresso chat. Let me know a little bit about what that means and how you help clients, and when do you prefer to speak to clients? Is it before they move or during a move?
Ideally, I'd like to get to people before they move. Before they're even thinking about moving is perfect. But the expat espresso chats are just 1 hour, because everyone's sort of stuck in various places right now. I find that we can clear a lot of issues in just 1 hour. I don't ask people to sign up for weeks and weeks of listening to me ramble on. And I'm also pretty blunt. It might be a British thing, I don't know. It might be a specifically Carole thing, but I do tend to say what I think. I say what I mean, and I mean what I say. So if somebody comes on and asks something, I do tell them straight away. I'm not going to spin it out. Plain English is one of the main key points of Expat Child. When I was moving, I couldn't find anything that spoke to me in plain, practical, sensible, straightforward English. So that's one of my key points. Someone actually did call me the dream killer, because if I think that a specific expat dream won't work, I won't be afraid to tell them. So yeah, I did get the title Dream Killer, which I think I might use.
If I had known that, I would have created a banner so we could have put that up there. That would have probably got a little extra attention. I love that, because I'm from the South. I live in the South, and we're not very direct, right? We just talk nice about everybody, and we don't really say what we're thinking all the time. Of course, living in Germany, you sound more German maybe than you do UK. I found my friends in Germany very direct, but I really liked it because I never had to think about, question what they were thinking. I always knew.
It really isn't. It isn't British. British are known for not saying
what they think. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think I'm particularly British, so I do. It's got to be efficient. So yeah, an hour. A lovely client last week was expecting to move, can't, and so I just managed to talk her down and put her in a different frame of mind and give her different ideas, and being able to see with this wonderful technology face to face, it makes it so much easier to work out psychically even. It's hard to explain.
Well, when you talk about talking to somebody, how do you help people that are going through this now see the silver linings in COVID, or how do you help them embrace the positive? And like we talked about that article that you wrote, not being a victim and embracing what's going on right now.
It's pushed a little reset on life, I think, and it's given us a good chance to pause and work out what's so important to us. A lot of people, again, I can only talk from the UK in the way that our lives are going at the moment. So there is no school, there is no work, everybody is at home, which can be interesting. And yes, that's my husband just come back now and slammed the door. So it's making people reevaluate their lives, and that can go in two different ways. And what I'm seeing is people are reevaluating whether they want to continue expat life, or whether they are so fed up with living in the UK with the lovely rain and moving overseas. So there are completely two separate groups of people. There are many people who have gone back and they're spending more time with their families than they have done in years, and are now deciding that that's where they're going to stay.
Yeah, and the work from home option will make that more possible. I know our whole family, because we're scattered from San Francisco to New York City, Boston, and we're all, reevaluating, like, what does this work from home look like? Where can we work from home?
That's a conversation I've been having a lot on LinkedIn recently.
So it'll really be interesting to see how everything changes. But I think you have to look for the positive as well as, you have to look for that and find the silver linings.
Yeah, so it's giving us time to think. And
Yeah.
for expats, we're realizing that our children are actually okay with this.
Yeah.
They're used to the change. They're used to the stress. They're used to the uncertainty. They're used to being at home without friends around. They're not suddenly ripped
Mm-hmm.
out of school.
I've had several expat friends say that we're uniquely equipped to handle this
We are.
in a lot of ways. So I do think that's interesting. So it'd be
Yeah.
interesting to see what new careers come out of this whole state of 2020. So
I'm learning teen speak. Did you know that the phrase reaching out is now a teenage specific phrase, and they reach out to friends that they haven't spoken to for a long time all around the world?
gaining the art of empathy, I guess.
Yeah.
Very
And
cool.
I haven't spoken to so-and-so for so long. I'm going to reach out.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Oh, that's cool.
Reinvent.
So as we kind of wrap up, what is your best mobility advice for somebody that's, I know you work a lot with people that are considering moving overseas, or maybe somebody that's coming back from an expat assignment. What is your best mobility advice if you can sum it up in a few sentences?
Communication, specifically with family, with children, because that's what Expat Child is all about, is the children. And it sort of evolved into the accompanying partner as well, because it was necessary. Proper communication with your children, not just telling them what's going to happen, talking with them and actively, positively listening. Children often speak or say things without speaking because children want to please us, and you have to read between the lines of what they're actually thinking about. Keep them involved. Obviously you can't pass all the control to them, but you can say, well, which toy would you like to take? Which outfits would you like to give to your friends? And keep them involved in certain ways and keep them moving forward, not looking back. Children have a habit of looking back. We need to keep them present and looking forward.
That's a great advice, and I had 4 kids. I moved with toddlers. I moved with angry teenagers. I had seniors or had high school kids that were in 3 different high schools. But helping them take ownership of that decision. And I know we made some mistakes along the way, but we've really had a lot of conversations about that. I think sometimes even admitting when you made mistakes is a really beneficial thing. And
and when they come to you and say, as my daughter did recently, I know I've hassled you all my life for online schooling, but I'm really, really pleased that you never gave in to me because I'm missing school right now.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I was like, oh, thank goodness for that.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, Carole, thank you so much for joining me. And for those of you that are here, be sure to connect with Carole and check out expatchild.com. Check out some of the articles that she's written there. Connect with her on LinkedIn. And I really appreciate you sharing. And I love the way you've brought these resources together. And you've used that experience of having lived overseas and having moved with a child and having to find that equal partnership with your husband to make that work. And it's not easy, but it certainly helps when we know we're not alone and with the other people that have gone through it and gone through it before us and can help guide us, guide the way. So if you're in that situation, be sure to sign up with Carole for an espresso chat for an hour. And thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been fantastic. Have a fabulous day.
Thank you so much, Carole. Take care. Bye, everyone.